Hey, it's Brendan Payne with Century 21 again, and I wanted to get you some information on the exposure factor because, as you probably already know, one of the biggest things, one of the biggest factors in whether or not you're going to be able to sell the home on your own, or whether or not when you choose an agent to list the home for you, whether they're going to be able to sell it, comes down to the exposure that you get for the property. Exposure equals demand. So the more exposure you can get for a property, the more demand you create for it. Clearly, the more demand you create for it, the better opportunity that you have for more showings and more people to come and look at it. And the more people that you have come and look at it, then the more likely you are to find the perfect match for the home. Now, the perfect match for the home is the person that is going to spend the most money, who's going to be the most emotionally committed to the home because it matches what they want. Different from the person that just comes in and says, it'll work for me. Or the investor who comes in and says, hey, the numbers work if I can get it at this price. The perfect buyer is the one that's a great match for the property and they're going to be willing to pay more. So, how do you create the most exposure, and what are some things to be aware of when you're selling on your own that are going to be a little bit difficult or may throw some obstacles in the way for you? So, the first part of exposure that you have to understand is you have to get it out to as many people as possible. So while this is probably the least important of the three, you do have to make people aware that it's for sale. For instance, you could have a great priced property, a great condition property, and if no one knows that it's for sale, it's unlikely that you're going to sell it. So when you think of the most amount of exposure, that's things like making sure that you've got a sign in the yard. If you're in a gated community, you can't have a sign, then where else are you putting it? Do you have it on Craigslist? Are you putting it on your Facebook closed groups, on Nextdoor? All of those things I market my properties on, and you as the consumer in a neighborhood probably have access to. That's kind of the shotgun approach, meaning you don't really, you're just putting it out there, hoping that word of mouth takes over and some people come across it. All right, it's exposure, but it's kind of a passive way because you're putting it out there and hoping people find it. Now, beyond that, the next group is you want to get very detailed with your marketing, meaning being able to gather a group of buyers or potential buyers that fit what you're looking for. Now, on the buy or what you have to sell. On the for sale by owner side, this is a little bit more difficult because you're likely not selling properties every single day. If you are, you're probably already an agent and you have your database. But one of the things that as an active agent where you're selling, 100, 200 listings every year, one of the things that you come up with is a large database of people who have looked at previous properties that you have had on the market, maybe a few months ago, maybe a few years ago. But over time, that database grows, and now when you take a listing similar to one that you've sold before in the past, you've got the ability to actually market that new listing to your database of people who had looked at similar properties. So that narrows it down. You've got the wide approach in the beginning that we talked about. Then you can narrow it down to people who you know are already looking for that type of product, that type of home, that neighborhood, that price point. You already have that captive audience because you know they were looking at similar properties before. That's the second factor. The third factor is you have to continuously do this. There is a major compound effect to the marketing and the exposure of your home. And I'm going to explain that in another video called the compound effect. But over time, you have to continually do this marketing. I have people on staff that the marketing activities that we're doing, they're repeating, they're doing it over and over and over again because the more something pops up in front of somebody, the more that it shows up in their search criteria, whether it's on ABC website or Realtor.com or Zillow, the more they're coming up and seeing that same one, the more it hits on their memory and they start going, you know what, I keep seeing that, maybe I need to go back with it. It's suggestive advertising is what it is. So if you can hit those three factors, or as you're putting together your plan to market the home, be able to get it not just sold, but get the most out of it, keep those in mind. One, you have to have the wide approach, which is pretty easy. You're probably already doing that. But two, figure out, is there a way that you can take a target market and present your property to that target market? And the target market are the people that we know are already looking for that type of property. And then three, have a system in place where you can continuously keep marketing it over and over and over, so it keeps showing up new, and that suggestive advertising to people kind of kicks in over time, and they say, boy, I just keep coming across this. Maybe I should take a look. Hopefully this helps. Again, the exposure factor is really critical in being able to get the most exposure, but the right exposure too. So we'll talk to you again soon. I hope this was helpful. Let me know how I can help you in the future.